Hi, I'm James Wilkinson and I've been a travel editor for over 20 years. On this show, we're going to take you to some of the world's most amazing destinations, from the big cities to the great regional areas. We'll go inside some of the world's best hotels, bars, restaurants, galleries, and much more. Right now, we're in Adelaide, South Australia, and this is Wayfarer. Previously on Wayfarer, we took you to the Adelaide Hills.
And actually, if we're looking out the window right now, Drilleek Farm is we're literally looking down at that from the balcony.
For me, I see it like a library, and each bottle has a story.
Well, I've had a great stay at the hotel so far, but I want to check out the Adelaide Hills, which is so well known for food and wine. To do that, I've enlisted the help of Liinaa, the wine director, and Liinaa, if you could show me around, that'd be amazing.
Let's go for it.
So Liinaa, we're here at one of my favourite wineries in Australia.
Absolutely. In the heart of the hills. This is Crowne Plaza. Let's go check it out.
Let's do it. Well, we're here at Shaw & Smith, one of my favourite wineries in Australia and one of the most spectacular wineries in the Adelaide Hills. Why is it so special?
I think this place has been created in a really good position here in the hills. It's a beautiful place, and the winery and the people have done everything to fit in with the landscape and what we call the terroir. So we just make wines that are really classic expressions of this region.
Known globally for a few different wines, including your M3s as well. But it is a brand that has resonated so well in Australia and around the world.
Yeah, I think Michael and Martin, the founders, have done a wonderful job. They have a very singular vision, and they've stuck at that really well for over 30 years now.
You created a wonderful visitor experience in the Adelaide Hills. I remember when this first opened, and it was really a bit of a game changer from an architecture standpoint and a style standpoint, and just the way you did tastings.
Yeah, we always want to have that focus on the wine. So, we do a sit-down tasting, people can engage with each other. It's not the traditional behind a bar sort of tasting. And there's an educational element to it as well.
That's part of the fun.
Absolutely.
Now, when it comes to your wines, your reds, you're very well known for your reds.
Yeah, I mean, cool climate Shiraz in the Adelaide Hills is something that's really growing in popularity, and people get it. They want a style of Shiraz that is more medium-bodied, more spicy, less big, but more elegant.
Now, you've got the great wines. What's your X factor?
It's a bit of less is more. There's a pared-back minimalism here. We really stick to focusing on beautiful wines and trying not to get too distracted by everything else.
And David, what I've seen is the quality of Chardonnay made in Australia is world class. We've seen some amazing Chardonnays being made around Australia, but what makes Adelaide Hills really good for Chardonnay?
I think, Liinaa, the hills it is a great match for Chardonnay. Chardonnay likes a cool climate, and we've got the altitude, we've got great rainfall, we've got some different aspects as well. But the other thing is we've been doing it for 3 decades now, so we might be slow learners, but we're really starting to get there, and the results are just so exciting.
And one of your staple at Crowne Smith is the M3 Chardonnay. This is a 2019 vintage. What is the stylistic approach? How would you actually describe this Chardonnay?
We love Chardonnay to have freshness. We just want it to have that vibrancy, and when you've got fresh acidity, you've got lots of flavour, but not too overtly fruity. You get these wines that age beautifully, that have complexity. They work well with food, and they really showcase this wonderful, cool climate that we have here in the Adelaide Hills.
This is delicious. Even 2019 vintage, I hear it was a warmer vintage and it was quite short as well. But there's still like a really great tension in the wine. There's really good acidity. How do you actually maintain, how do you actually have that much acidity in the new world?
I think we've worked really hard on our sourcing and our growing, and we're growing grapes a little bit higher in altitude than we were 10 years ago. We also make sure we pick them when it's still got lots of fresh acidity. So it's a combination of things, but we're always searching for balance, complexity, and that great intensity of flavour.
You talk of altitude. What's the altitude of the Adelaide Hills? What's the highest point for growing wine?
The highest point is getting up around 600 metres, and most of our Chardonnay is in between 450 and 550 metres.
That's quite high.
It is, yeah, but Chardonnay loves it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Cheers.
This is section 28. This is my favorite cheesemaker in Adelaide Hills. His name is Kim. Let's go meet him.
That sounds good. We're here at section 28, a great little cheese factory here in the Adelaide Hills. And mate, what a fantastic spot you've opened up.
Thank you. No, really nice to be here, really nice that you've been able to visit, thanks.
And you're in a container to start off with, and that's where you're aging the cheese.
Yeah, we've got a couple of containers, so and that is working pretty well for us at the moment, yeah.
You say that you specialise in Alpine cheese. What does that mean?
We call them Alpine style. There's not really a category of Alpine, but it just talks about the type of, or the method of production. And so in the Alps, you didn't often have a lot of access to market, so you had to make cheeses that lasted longer, had less moisture, and were able to be carted up and down the hills. So that, in very simple terms, that's the way we do it. And we only make those because they happen to be the cheeses that we're particularly passionate about.
Now there's something else about concept of terroir. We often talk about terroir with wine, cool climate, about the altitude, about the sunset, the rising. What about cheese? What does Adelaide Hills bring? What is the concept of terroir within Adelaide Hills region?
Cheese is a reflection of the milk. We always say 40% of the work's done in the paddock. So for us, the milk you source from the Adelaide Hills is fresh, it's clean, it's really, really high quality, and that's the taste of the hills, the Adelaide Hills. So, and that flows into our cheese. We then try and do as little as we can to that cheese. So we don't necessarily make anything cute and different about it, but really want to make cheeses that reflect that milk that we pick up.
And you spend a lot of time in Europe, so is this where the passion really came from to be doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, largely. I mean, I grew up on a wheat and sheep farm out in Western South Australia, so there's not a lot of cows out there, but I spend a lot of time in Eastern France and Northern Italy, and I love how in each little village you've got a cheese that's reflective of the environment, reflective of the people, reflective of their history, and I found that quite inspiring when we're looking at setting up.
And the cheeses that you make, it's going to be a tricky question here, but have you got a favourite?
It's a little bit like asking if you've got a favourite child. So on days I have favourites, but to be honest, we set out to make the Monforte. That was the first cheese we made. That's the original inspiration. That's our flagship cheese, and when it works, it's my favourite cheese. Yeah.
Is it a challenging cheese to produce?
I think it's a challenging cheese to make excellent. So you can make it quite a high quality regularly, but to make it excellent is you have to have a lot of things work for us.
Now we're up here in a part of the Adelaide Hills that is well known for cheese. You've got a few great cheese producers here who have been around for a long time, so it's obviously good having great competitors in the market.
It's really nice to be part of a cohort of, we play in a different market, we make a different style of cheese, so we're almost like family rather than direct competitors, and they've done some outstanding work in terms of establishing the Adelaide Hills as a great place for cheese.
How would you describe the Monforte here? This is a 30 months age, you told me. What are the tasting notes?
Yeah, so for this one, this is our reserve. When we find the Monforte, our standard Monforte, we taste it at about 12 months. When it's exceptional, we age it out a bit longer. This one up front, it's got still got a little bit of the creaminess, the lactic, the milky flavour, but then you've got tropical notes. So for me, it's pineapple and lychees, and then a base note which comes from the rind and the cave, this base sort of earthy nuttiness that comes through as well, which is almost like I mean for me it's probably it reminds me of roast hazelnuts or Langy roast hazelnuts specifically. So
Yeah, it's quite nutty, and then with the aging as well. Do you see there might be some earthy, mushroomy notes?
Yeah,
as well?
coming in from the rind, which is the flavour of the cave that's been absorbed.
Beautiful. Well, I guess we'll take some of this cheese this afternoon, James, and we will be doing some wine pairings with them.
It sounds great. Well, thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you for your time, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
So James, that was a little snapshot of the Adelaide Hills. There's so much more you can do.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Coming up on the next episode of Wayfarer, we're taking you to Tasmania. You're using incredible local produce and putting your own flair to it. Let's head into the restaurant now and find out about the local produce and much more.
My core philosophy is simple and bold flavours presented in an interesting or exciting way.
Right now we're in Tasmania and this is Wayfarer.